What's up?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I've never went live ever
It's
on
okay.
Instagram.
It's okay because you were telling me to send you a link, and I was like, no, there's no link to send you. So I appreciate you being patient. I personally would have lost shit. I would have been like, what are you talking about?
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I thank you so much for being patient with me, and because like it's hard to explain that. I was like sending you circles and stuff, but so I've got to ask you this, okay? You are a power lifter and a bodybuilder. I'm just going to jump right into it because
Yeah.
so many people assume that bodybuilders are strong because of how they look. In reality, they're really not.
Oh, thanks for saying that. A lot of people gonna get offended by that. Seriously, I could not believe you just said that. That's true. That's true. Well, I say bodybuilding, it's in my beauty contest. Do you agree?
Definitely, definitely.
Yes. So, a lot of our training is mostly, especially modern day bodybuilders, is just stick to machinery. And a lot of them just like they take compound out, which is I don't think that's right because I started training when I was 18, and I'll be 32 by October this year. So it's almost 16
Now,
years.
how old are you,
I'm 30, turning 32.
Marilyn? I would not sell you a beer. I mean, you look so young. That is, I
I don't
that's why my eyes bolted when you said that.
Yeah, a lot of people would guess I'm 25, 26, something like
But
that.
less than that. But okay, so you're okay. So tell us more.
So yeah, I had worked with so many coaches before. So I'm from Hong Kong. So where I'm from, I could only get the best that I could. But out of every bodybuilding coaches I ever worked with, then none of them really taught me compound lifts and how to move big weight. We all stick to machinery. And then my shoulders, especially, I have to talk about this. My shoulders never grew until I started overhead press. Then I realized, okay, that's what I'm missing. And still, like, but I didn't have time to sign up for powerlifting. So I decided to like figure it out myself. Even though my form was shit, but I'm just short and stocky, and I'm structurally built for like moving big way. So I kind of figured my shit out, and I have gotten really good at it. Like the thing is, even your form is shit, your body is adapted to the movement. You can get really strong with the shitty form. You know what I mean? Your body is it can adapt to anything. So yeah, that's how I started powerlifting. That's why
But
I started powerlifting. Yeah.
the thing about you that especially like when I saw the shots that Glenn did in the video and all that, is that your face, and please don't take this the wrong way, but your face is very, very feminine, even when you're like about to hit the stage, very, very feminine. But your physique hard, and I've never seen that before. But your physique, I mean, we're talking some like hard muscle,
Mhm.
but the face is very, very feminine, very feminine. In fact, like you could do a beauty pageant, because the thing is, a lot of female bodybuilders and male bodybuilders, when they do a show, they're
Mhm.
they've got what's called the death face. Their whole
Yeah.
face, then their cheeks disappear.
Yeah.
It's not a good look in the face. But you don't have that. But you're still grainy hard.
Right. Well, I think that has to do with genetic. And thank you. Well, yeah, I didn't realize I have baby face until I'm in my 20s. Because when I was in my teen years, and obviously I looked young, and then when I got to my 20s, I still look the same.
Yeah.
And that's why my mom say, "Hey, you have baby face." Like, yeah, maybe you're right. And that's genetic, and also had to do with our Asian gene too. And you know,
So which one did you find first? I think you already sort of alluded to it, but was it bodybuilding or powerlifting that you found first?
I found bodybuilding first, and that's because of I'll talk about that quite a number of times. It's because of my eating disorder, anorexia. I was anorexic by the end of 17. So growing up, I was always that chubby girl being made fun of, and because of where I'm from Hong Kong, and in Asian culture, I'm sure you already know, like they're like skinny little women,
Mm-hmm.
and especially back in the days when I was in my teen years, in my 20s. Women, they like women basically like stick figure, like, behind, like, no chest and no ass, and that's what they like. So me being a chubby girl, like, I always get being made fun of, and people are very judgmental, and I hated the way I look. And then I started starving myself. I started doing a lot of cardio until the point my organs stopped failing. And I went to see a nutritionist, and she told me I I was anorexic, and there's no drug you can take, but being anorexia, it's a mental illness. So I had to see psychiatrists, not just nutritionists, and also psychiatrists at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had to start eating again, I was so worried about a rebound because I wasn't eating for 8 months. For 8 months, I was just drinking soup and running and not eating. So when I had to start eating again, I was worried about a rebound. And then I started training at the gym, and I got obsessed with it because I thought if I don't train, I would gain weight. I would gain a little bit weight back. So that's how I started.
And it's interesting because, like you said, anorexia, bulimia, eating disorders in general, they are very much psychological. And so you have to, I wish there was a medication you could take, but it's not that simple. It's a far more complex situation.
Yeah,
And then with bodybuilding and powerlifting, you actually eat more than the average person. So that's, another thing that you got to kind of tackle, because you can't build a physique like yours unless you're eating several times a day and there's small to medium meals. So there's all sorts of discipline involved. And then the training, of course.
of
I
course.
mean, it all together. If one component is off, then everything is off.
That's right. That's right. Even in off season, and I've never had problem gaining weight, and I have reached a point. Actually, start last year, 2022, where I got stuck in a certain point, which is 75 kilos. And for the longest time, I couldn't just go past that. I have reached my maximum body weight for my height. I'm 5'3".
Mm.
So when I'm cutting, we shrink when we start cutting. Okay? So when I'm cutting, I'm 5'2". And right, I'm 5'3", I'm 75 kilos, 165 pounds, which is the maximum of my body frame. And now I have to force eat in order to get bigger.
I didn't know that until I don't know. I think it was last year's Olympia, maybe. And that when you prep to a certain point, the body actually, you can shrink an inch or two, which is crazy. Even like
Um,
power that I only know this because there was a classic physique competitor that had a weight issue, and a chiropractor actually stretched him out and got him back to a height where his weight was okay.
what?
Right?
They can do that?
It's the craziest thing. I'm not even kidding. And it was like a top guy. It was like, I'm serious. It's insane.
Stretch
But
them out.
yeah. Because I've never heard of
Wow.
that before.
That's
It is
crazy.
crazy, but this is a crazy sport. So, so you turned pro. Before we talk about, of course, everybody wants to know about the 2022 Olympia Amateur where you turned pro. But before that, how long had you been competing for?
I only started competing in 2018, but I started training in 2009. For the first 7, 8 years, I was natural, and because I was still back in Hong Kong, and the coaches I was hiring, I was expecting myself to compete. Like I was paying a coach to prep me on stage, but like they just, for whatever reason, either they didn't have the knowledge or the confidence to put me on the thing that I should be taking. So I was training natural, and they told me I could do it natural, so I did, right? And then just nothing happened, and that's why all this time I took, not until 2018, I started working with Shelby Stern, my online coach, and then that was the first time I compete for the first time, and I took the overall. But it was from different organizations called Musclemania, if you heard about that.
Of course, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You know,
Hmm.
I like how transparent you are about the supplements. I think that's important. But the thing is that they are important, but they're not like I said, without the food, without the training, you're not going to be a pro. You're not going to win a show. You know, it's important, but it's not the most important, you know. And my only concern with you, and you know, you probably know how to do this already though, is the training, because as a power lifter, your body takes quite a beating. I'm sure you don't do that while you're prepping for bodybuilding, do you? Because I know Ronnie Coleman used to do that, but that's insane, I think.
Did he do that? Like, did he compete two sports at the same
Well,
time?
he never, you
No,
know,
right?
he never really competed, but he was doing like 800-pound squats when he was like
Yeah, I've
5
seen it.
oh, which is insane.
The most insane part of it, he was shredded.
Exactly. Exactly. Because you know he wasn't eating hardly any carbs. And then on top of that, he's probably switching up the fats. And, you know, to do that, a lift like that, when you know, your body is like, you know, it's crazy. He was crazy. I mean, but, you know, God love him.
But well, he's 8-time Mr. Olympia, right? So when you talk about wanting to come, I have to say it here because like it still stuck with me. Because when I was still back in Hong Kong, there was one time I was training with a guy, and he was my long time training partner, and somehow he felt threatened by my strength. Like I'm not necessarily by saying that I'm not stronger than him, but we're strength level similar. He was a classic physique guy, and you know, I was still trying to figure my way out how to like deadlift without a proper cue and how to deadlift properly. But I was still deadlifting heavy, and then he would say shit like, "If you keep deadlifting heavy, you end up like Ronnie Coleman." First of all, he's Mr. Olympia 8 times.
Right.
But you can't say that about him. Like,
I
and that's very condescending. So what I'm saying is, whoever loves either just to get in shape or want to one day compete in bodybuilding, if you train with a guy like that, you have to cut him out.
Right.
Yeah, well, I get that because at the time my form was shit, but that's the ambition, you know. Like you can't just judge me without like giving me proper direction. If you don't, like, just shut up.
Right. And I think a little bit of that's insecurity too, because even though
Yeah,
he was stronger than you, maybe he could lift more. If with powerlifting, it's all about your body weight and how much you're lifting. So if a guy's like, I don't know, like 350 pounds and he's benching 500, that's not really that impressive. But if somebody's
yeah,
200 pounds and they're benching 400 or 450, that's like, wow, you know, like anything that's
yeah.
double weight or more is very impressive. But like, you know, some of these powerlifters they weigh like 400 pounds. So I'm not really that impressed.
Well, I've seen smaller powerlifter. I know one girl. She have a world record. She's like 115 pounds maybe, and she was squatting 315 for one rep max. That's her one rep max, but that's like almost 3 times of her body weight.
Yeah, that's insane. But that's also the completely different training approach. You know,
Yeah.
powerlifters will rep maxes. Bodybuilders are like doing 6, 8, 10, 12 reps. You can't do that with powerlifting. You'll kill yourself. So
Well, guess what? It's possible.
it is.
It just depends on how long you've been training.
Well,
That's
there's Mike O'Hearn. You know, he does powerlifting and bodybuilding. So it's powerlifting, power bodybuilding. I
power
don't know what he calls
power building.
it. Yeah, something
Power
like
building.
that.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what I'm doing too, and I don't know anyone in person that actually do both sport at the same time. I know bodybuilders that used to powerlift, but then now they're really focusing on just bodybuilding. But I don't know anyone that do both at the same time.
I know tons of people that do both on the same time on Instagram, but not in reality. They say they
Right.
do it. They don't actually. That's why, you know, I think it's great that you're a powerlifter too, because a lot of bodybuilders, they might get offended by this, but they, you know, it's a lot of in the gym, you know, and especially with powerlifting too, because powerlifting usually you have 3 judges and they can see every angle,
Yeah.
you know, of your, so if you're sloppy on one, boom, you're done. You know what I mean? So, you know, now when you powerlift, are you shirted or are you raw?
Raw. Classic raw.
Nice. That's even more hardcore, I think. So the 2022 Olympia Amateur, tell us about that a little bit, because you could have gone pro in any number of shows, but you chose one that was pretty hard. You know what I mean? Like the Olympia is a Super Bowl of bodybuilding. You know, you don't go to the Olympia for an easy win. So why did you pick that show out of all the others?
Well, thanks for asking. Yes, you have asked every question I've always wanted to tell people. The answer I always want to tell people about, which is, back in time, I was in Hong Kong, and we have IFBB Pro qualifier show, and I could have got my pro cut right there. Like, barely anyone show up, and that's not a competition, because my goal is just not to earn my pro card and just be a pro forever. Like, there are people that do that, but that's not me. If I get a pro card, I want to do a pro show. It didn't matter how many years like it take me to turn pro. It didn't matter, because there are easier shows. Like, you could went to India where you were the only girl on that stage, but you won't be able to do a pro show after you get a pro card. If you want to get it easy, it'll take you at least maybe like 3, 4, 5 years off before you can do a pro show. But that's not me. It took me 15 years to turn pro, because I pick every big amateur shows. I've done the Extravaganza from Rising Phoenix. So Rising Phoenix is a pro show, so Extravaganza is for amateur. So it's another day of Rising Phoenix. And Vancouver Pro, Arnold Amateur, and Olympia and Orlando, the National. They're all big amateur shows. The reason why I chose that was because like I want to be in a real competition. I want to win it like I fought for it. And I think other girls should have done the same. Whoever that truly loves bodybuilding should do the same.
I agree. I agree. And I think, like you said, you know, if you wanted an easy pro card or an easy road to the pro card, there were shows you could do. But it's not just about going pro. It's how you go pro. And how you go pro, you went pro.
Yeah. Like if you just win a show where you're just lucky, you're not winning. You're not competing. That's not a real competition.
I agree. Kim Fidas-Haynes agrees too. And the thing is, honestly, I think that's important too. And I think that sort of sets the tone for your pro career. You know, it says a lot about you where you turn pro. You know, if you really fought hard and you went to battle for that card, or like you said, you could have gone to a show where you were the one girl and you got the pro ball. That's yeah.
I think they should have come up with rules like if it's less than a certain number of competitors, that pro card would not give out. That should come up with rules like that, because that's competition. It's not just for money, for promoters.
Right. And I think I also want to give you kudos. You know, you mentioned some really, really big shows like the Arnold Amateur, the Toronto, the Extravaganza. These are really, really big shows. And I think that although you didn't go pro at those shows, right, you got in front of the eyes of some pretty important people. And that's good too. And you don't get in front of those eyes at, you know, easy shows, you know? That's
right. That's right. And I did, what's the organization I was thinking about? The Mania. So the first time I competed, I got the overall as figure, and then it was in China actually, and then I was qualified to do the final in Vegas 4 months later, and I placed 6th. There were 8 girls on the stage, so basically I lost, and I wasn't happy because like if I lost, I'm a good loser. You know what I mean? Like if I lost, I know why. Because I have a good eye too. If the girl that took the place, if they won and they deserved it, I would not say anything. You know, I always say that. But I was sure I could have at least come in 3rd place in that show. And I wasn't happy with the judging, and they didn't know all the compulsory poses. There was no rules on how your body should look like, and it wasn't anything I heard from NPC, because I didn't know the difference, because that was the second time I competing. So I quit that show. I took it overall the first time. I had the trophy and everything. So if I compete in another organization, and that title, whatever title I had in that organization, would be like eliminated. But I didn't get fucked.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you. I mean, when you do a show, there's some things, like some basic things that need to be there. Like, for example, the competitors knowing how to hit the mandatory poses. That's so important, right? You know, and the other thing too is for the judges, I want to make sure that the judges are judging on the physique, because bodybuilding is not a height competition and it's not a weight competition. It's a physique competition. So whether you're 5'3" or 5'8" or 6'1" or 5, it doesn't matter. And that's, an issue that my man, Sean Clarita, is having. And I hope that, because I think Sean Clarita can win the Arnold Classic. I don't care if Big Ramy is bigger or Nick Walker's heavier. If you've got the physique, the aesthetics, the flow, the symmetry, if you come in hard as nails, and pose hard, because that's the other thing, you got to know how to pose, which he does, you do, then you win the show. It doesn't matter who's taller or who weighs more.
Yeah. Like some bigger female, I don't really follow male bodybuilding, but for female bodybuilding, there are bigger girls that are not as conditioned. I mean, Olympia Amateur, the show I did, was the perfect example because I was the smallest girl. Same as national, I was the smallest girl. Like, I was surprised because when I was lining up in a heavyweight class, backstage, I was freaking out because everyone was bigger than me. I'm like, shit, this is not gonna look good. But the lighting in backstage was like dark. And then when I went on stage, like I can't, like when you're posing on stage, like being judged, you can't just look at our competitor like that. So you have no idea. The best you can do is just focus on yourself, the best you can. And then I still came in second place at national. I was the smallest girl. It was a big lineup for heavyweight. And Olympia Amateur as well. I was the smallest girl. But I came in better condition. I was more chaser. I have more muscle maturity, like all these years of training. But still, you want to have both. You want to have size, conditioning, and, the flow and everything. Everything plays a part.
And it's so important. I mean, like Marilyn Yee's got a look that's all Marilyn Yee. You know what I mean? And you've got a nice physique. You come in conditioned. You've got good muscle maturity. You've got great symmetry. But the danger, though, is that if it gets in your head, I'm the smallest competitor here. Now you start playing the size game. Now you start to compromise that symmetry that you've got, that condition that you got. That's why it's like, you doing you is the best thing you could do, I think. You know what I mean? If you try to be different people, it might not work out.
I spoke to I still talk to my very first bodybuilding coach back in Hong Kong, and he told me the same thing. I agree. But then I truly want to be bigger. I truly want to be bigger because I've been competing in the sport for this much time, years of competing and training. I just look at bodies and I used to like woman physique,
Right.
And then it really taught me time to grow into woman bodybuilding because nobody wants to be, hey, the first time I'm competing, I want to look like this. Like, you don't hear that a lot, but I actually like being bigger, and I actually find big woman looks attractive.
Well, but I'm like dying to jump in. I want to say what's up to Fit Mom Colleen. Thank you so much for stopping by. But the thing is that what you said there, it took time. And I think if you do it gradually, that's great. You can easily put on more size. To me, like the red flags come up when you want to do it really fast. You know what I mean? Because then you might not do it right. But like, with you, it's a marathon. It's not a race, right? And so I feel like you put on more size and keep those aesthetics that you got. It's just when you go too fast. And I think now the good thing is that you've got the pro card. So that kind of takes a little bit of the stress off your shoulders a little bit. But now you're on to the next goal, right? So
yeah. It took me forever. I'll say forever to turn pro. Because I know people in their late 20s, and one friend of mine from Hong Kong, he's 38 and still amateur. The thing is being international athlete. It's a lot harder to get pro card because you have to be overall. I was the overall anyway, but I'm saying in general, you have to be the one and only overall winner to turn pro. A lot of international pro qualifiers show, and that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah. And
I'm sorry. And I also think it's fantastic when I was talking to you about Sean Clarita, I think it's fantastic that you don't follow the men. And I know that the thing is that you're so driven and so committed and concentrated on women's bodybuilding physique. That's your whole world. And that's great. You know what I mean? Because it's like it should be. You got to, how are you going to be the best if you know your own competition,
Exactly. And I don't feel like, not one day I feel like I'm working at the gym because I love what I do. I'm a meathead. I just love it. Take away social media and all this attention. I was doing still do the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about shooting with Glenn, because I loved what you did with Amazon's Fit Mag, and you guys did an interview, which is really good. It's available at Amazon's Fit Mag YouTube channel. What was that like?
Um, well, it was like the interview was really quick, and the photo shoot. I had no idea what we were shooting for. It was the bedroom scene, and I've done that a number of times. But my conditioning was great at the time. I think it was like a few weeks before I did the national, and I was just happy that we got the chance to like have photo shoot when my conditioning were great. Because I have done shoot where it was post show like almost a week after show, and I was already eating my face off like shit. So I'm glad we did, and
Well, it looked,
so the
yeah,
yeah.
it looked fantastic. Glenn just saying you're a beautiful person and a beautiful model, and I really
Oh, thank you.
did. And the interview, yeah, I wish the interview was longer, but sometimes you got to keep them wanting more. So like sometimes shorter is better. But it was a good interview, and it was like you were both sitting down. It was just like very chill. I like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, he bought all the gear from. Well, the photo shoot looked simple, but there's a lot of lighting, cameras, and he had to drag all of his gear all the way from parking lot to the hotel room, and I appreciate that. He drove all the way to my hotel as well. So.
Well, that's actually, it's funny. I'm scratching my neck because you're saying things that I'm thinking. But that's what I like about Glenn's work, because sometimes it looks simple, because I think what he's going for is a very kind of chill, like not like let me just like kill your senses with all these gadgets. But to look simple actually requires a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So I totally, we're on the same wavelength on that.
Yeah, and the short video of me flexing, there was no music. That was the hard part.
Wow.
The music was me added after. That was just playing.
I would never have guessed that.
Yeah.
I would, but that is why I also put on the graphic that you're a bodybuilder, you're a power lifter, but you're a model also. And a model is not just somebody that stands in front of a camera. You have to be able to do some acting in that, you know, and you have to be able to kind of like roll with the punches. And Glenn, a photographer, is a lot more than a guy that presses a button on a camera. There's a lot of skill involved on both sides. So, you know, I'm surprised there was no music, but not totally surprised either, you know.
Well, you just have to use a little bit of imagination, and from my experience too, because I also her biceps, right? So I talk to camera quite a bit, so I get that from my experience too, and my other experience working with other photographers. The
Definitely.
facial expression, like the slow blink, the cat eye blink, that kind of thing.
There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm not a photographer. I've always wanted to be, and I dabble here and there. But there's so much there. Glenn says March cover, Amazon's Fitness Magazine. That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
coming off.
And hopefully you'll be able to autograph some to your fans, and maybe like at an expo or a bodybuilding show. People will go crazy for that. Absolutely crazy, because there's not a lot of magazines out there anymore. MD is still around. They're a good magazine, but a magazine that's committed to muscular women is unheard of. And so to be on the cover, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, well, thanks for being supporting the sport, you guys, because women bodybuilding were eliminated, I think 2 3 years ago, and it was just brought back not too long ago, and I think that's so wrong. That's the regional, that's the regional bodybuilding. It's bodybuilding. Why are you taking women bodybuilding out? It doesn't make sense.
The thing is that, you know, I'm going to compare Glenn to Jake Wood, and I think it's a good comparison. It's these guys know how to market muscular women, whereas folks that were involved in the sport and leadership positions, even the previous Olympia owners, they didn't know what to do with it, and so they figured, well, we'll just like leave it here. And then when Iris Kyle retired, they're like, well, we're going to get rid of it. And you know what I mean? And that you know, if you know how to market a product, you can do very well with it. And I'll tell you something, muscular women have always been in demand. Even when they were trying to kill the sport, it was in demand. So I'm just so happy. Now a lot of people are looking at you guys and they're like, we want to do this too. Because for the longest time, ladies only thought they could do bikini or figure. You know, now they've got women's bodybuilding again, they got women's physique, they got wellness, there's some options. You know, there's a lot of different looks, you know.
Yeah, and before women bodybuilding was brought back, women's physique was so competitive.
Yeah.
If you look at Temper Pro, I think 2019, it was like 42 girls.
Oh, for sure. Now, the
Yeah.
one that I would like to see, though, and I know you would as well, but I would love to see women's physique and women's bodybuilding back at the Arnold. You know, I mean, because again, it's like, come on, what's going on? But we'll see. We'll see.
They do have woman bodybuilding division this year for amateur. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, I hope they have it for the pro, though, you know. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future. So, and I know that you had asked me about Titan Medical, and I'm hoping you'll send them an email because I think, you know, Team Titan does some fantastic work. In fact, you're live right now. So as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to jump over to Titan Talk Tuesday. But they do some fantastic work. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to at least introduce yourself to them.
I actually have sent them email already.
Very, very.
The first time I come across that profile was actually from one of Shelby's top athlete, Rachel Daniel. Because she posts Titan Medical Center a lot. So I look it up and was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Definitely.